Hi, this is Zach with Worn&Wound. Today we'll be taking a look at the Hanhart Pioneer Mark I Monopusher Chronograph. Hanhart is a brand we've talked about a few times now on Worn&Wound. We've reviewed two of their other watches. This watch we're looking at here is kind of perhaps their most important watch in their collection because it is a replica of a watch they made in 1938, which was a military issued monopusher chronograph called the Caliber 40. Very famous watch, very collectible. And this watch pays respect to that and stays very true to the design of it, but obviously giving it a total modern overhaul just to be a very, very well-built German-made monopusher chronograph. So there's a few things that are kind of important about this watch aesthetically, which we'll go into, but kind of the biggest thing to note is that it is a mechanical monopusher chronograph. These are very obscure. Hanhart really is, in my opinion, kind of the leader in making them right now, though there are a few other brands with them. They do a lot of modifications with the La Joux Perret movement brand to create these movements. These aren't movements that are just available, and despite being German-made, extremely high quality, and having this special movement that is quite rare, they maintain a really good price point. So this watch comes in at $2,160, which is a very, very fair price for what you're getting here, and it is an exceptionally beautiful watch. So let's take a closer look. The case of the Hanhart Pioneer Mark I is a really nice size. It's 40 millimeters in diameter by 49.2 millimeters lug to lug and 15 millimeters tall, and that's to the top of this domed sapphire crystal here. It also features 20 millimeter lugs. Looking from an overhead, it has this very kind of classic, straightforward design. And you'll see actually more from the side how they've really recreated a fairly interesting an atypical design that is very much, speaking to the watch from the 1930s. Looking at it from above, though, the real standout features are the fluted bezel, the pusher, and the crown. So starting with the bezel, this very distinctive design. It's not, Hanhart isn't the only brand with this, but it's definitely kind of a Hanhart signature look with a little red mark at 12. It is a bi-directional friction bezel, so it's non-ratcheting. You just kind of move it around. It moves very smoothly. It's not going to move accidentally, like if you brush it, it's not going to slide around. It has a very nice feel to it. It's a very cool look. I happen to think it's very attractive and just gives it that real 1930s feel. Now looking at the pusher and the crown, one thing you might note about the pusher here, well, first of all, there's a ceramic red cap. This is a signature Hanhart. You'll see that on all of their watches is some use of a red pusher. If it's on a two-pusher chronograph, it'll be on the reset button, but since it's a mono pusher, it's just on the single button. On most watches, now, if you were to have both of the buttons, they'd be coming off at around 2 and 4. One of the things Hanhart does when they modify their movements is actually adjust the position of that pusher. And they move it to basically create a larger space between the crown and the pusher. So here it's coming off, a little bit between 2 and 1. And if you look at photos of the Caliber 40 from 1938, you'll see that that space is actually just like that as well. So that's a really cool detail. And so just one of those little things really they did not have to do, but they did to make it kind of a more authentic and more interesting watch. The crown now is this massive crown, 8 millimeters wide by 5 millimeters tall. It's a really kind of a big statement crown. I really like it. It doesn't bite your wrist when you are wearing it because there's enough clearance, and it's not like jagged in any way. It's not screw down, but honestly sometimes I don't like that, but because this crown is so it wants to be wound. And the original watch was a manual wound, so I did find myself winding this watch before I put it on, and I happen to really like that. Looking at the case now from the side, you can see how the lugs are kind of an interesting shape and how they come off of the mid case is a little different. So, rather than being the full height of the mid case, they are kind of just coming off of the center. And it's a kind of a strange look, though it works. It gives you kind of more clearance for the strap above the case back, but it is, once again, just an authentic design detail to the 1930s model. All around, you have very kind of nice brushing, all very high quality, sharp edges on everything. Looking at the crown now from the side, you can see it has a big Hanhart H on there. Nothing is overly ornate or fancy, but everything is very well executed. Quickly looking at the case back now, you have a solid case back with some nice design elements on here. I like that they use some simple elements just to decorate it. So you have a few kind of boxes with various information in them, made in Germany, Pioneer Mark I. Then you have an H in the middle that's deeply etched with this little design. An interesting thing about their case backs is that the tool is a different type of tool. So it's clearly, you have these 3 prongs coming off here rather than those little indents or screws. So clearly there is a tool that they make that you would use to take this off. So, it makes sense that with this movement in here, frankly, you'd want it to go back to Hanhart or an authorized, service center for repair, that you wouldn't want to just send this anywhere. The dial of the Pioneer Mark I is clean and clear, as you'd imagine from any military watch, which is really beautiful execution all around. So it's a matte black surface, perhaps a little bit of a sheen to it, so it's not just totally matte. It makes a nice dark black. And on that you have this primary index of numerals, very straightforward in typeface here, very clean, very clear, interrupted at 3 and 9 for these subdials. One thing I really like about this watch is that everything is very precisely located. So the subdials, and this is another thing they adjust actually when they modify the movement, are just in the right place. So they kind of fill out that area between where 3 and 9 would be, but they don't cut into the numbers around it. So everything is fully featured and just looks really great. On the outer index here, you have a minute and chronograph seconds counter. We obviously have the chronograph running here. It has numerals every 5, lines for the individual, and then sub 1/5 second lines for the chronograph, should you need that level of precision. Then there's a fine white line going around the entire thing as well, which just kind of gives it a nice edge. Looking at the subdials themselves, at 3 of a 30-minute counter, at 9 you have a active seconds. Both are depressed into the dial and feature concentric circular graining, so they have a little bit more of a kind of a sun ray sheen to it. It's a nice bit of contrast, adds some just a little bit more texture to the dial, so it's not just totally kind of utilitarian. There's a little bit of something decorative there, which is nice. Really nice edges on those. They're really crisp. The printing, just to make a point, I remember this with the other Hanharts we've looked at, their printing is just exceptional. I mean, you can look at this under a loop and everything is just absolutely perfectly crisp. Looking at under 12, you have a Hanhart 1882 logo, automatic above 6. Obviously automatic wouldn't have been, both of these details are different from the original model, but they are understandable on a modern watch. Looking at the hands now, you have these very distinctive hands, which are once again true to the time period. I think you could sort of call them cathedral hands, or they're just a very old-fashioned type of hand. So you have the hour and minute, very different from each other. They have a very kind of ornate, almost Baroque shapes to them with some lines on them, points on them. One thing that's really great about this is that the minute hand actually curls down towards the end, which is a really nice detail. You don't see that very often, and it's very, in person, very attractive. They're both polished steel, then also with lume. The second hand here, it is red with a white tip, and then once again that tip curls down a little bit to point down further, as it is high above the dial. Great attention to detail. I really love the red and white combination there. Looking at the subdial hands, then you have just a white stick for the active seconds, and a little red triangle pointer for the chronograph minutes. Once again, it's nice that the chronograph and the 2 chronograph elements are in red, as is the pusher, so everything kind of tells the story. Quickly talking about the lume, it's very good, it's very strong, which I was actually very happy to see, as the numbers themselves are fairly thin, so sometimes that can be an issue. Powering the Pioneer Mark I is the HAN 3601 caliber. This is a modified Valjoux 7753 that's been modified by La Joux to Hanhart specifications. So it's a very good movement to begin with that's modified by a very high-end movement manufacturer and modifier. So this is a really good value to have in this watch. On top of that, you have just these unique elements, which the most unique being the Monopusher action, which, like I said, you really don't find on watches in this price range unless they're by Hanhart. Most watches with Monopushers really start well above $5,000, so this is really an exceptional value. Because it's a Monopusher, you control all of the chronograph functions from the button. Start it, stop it, and reset it all from a single button. In some ways, it's a more historical way of using a chronograph. It's not necessarily the better way of using a chronograph, because obviously you can't start it, stop it, and then restart it. You have to reset it. But frankly, you're not buying this watch for that aspect of it. That said, they do make the exact same watch with a more traditional start and 2-button chronograph layout. So if that doesn't interest you what the aesthetic does, you can get that option. Because the watch is based on a 7753, you have kind of the standard specifications there. So it's a 28,800 beats per hour, 27 joules, hacking, hand winding. One of the things they did with this movement also is removed the date. So, it's not just covered up. When you pull the crown out, you don't it just goes one stop for you to set the time. You don't have to skip a first stop, which is a nice thing to do, because often dates are just covered up on movements rather than actually being kind of modified out. On top of that, as I pointed out, the Monopusher button has been moved from 2 to between 1 and 2. It might not be on this one, it's kind of hard to say exactly, but they do on many of their movements modify the positioning of those 2 sub-dials. And I think it's possible because they are just very perfectly positioned here. On the wrist, the Pioneer Mark I wears exceptionally well. I love actually how it fits. It is not a small watch, but at 40 millimeters, it's like the appropriate size for a nice, rugged, robust military chronograph. And I think it suits, really well on my 7-inch wrist here. It's not too big at all, but definitely makes a statement. Lug to lug, does not span over, so it fits well. This is one of those watches, the second I put it on, I was just like, wow, that is so nice looking on my wrist. That fits so well. This is a watch that I could wear all the time. Perhaps the dimension of the height, 15 millimeters, it is a chunky watch, but 15 millimeters is pretty standard for an automatic chronograph, so that is just to be expected. And the Caseback kind of comes in, so it does sit in your wrist a little bit, so it's not just really, too high, but it is a tall watch. Very rugged looking, just so attractive. I think this watch just exudes style by staying true to the historical aspects of it. They just have this very interesting watch, the fluted bezel, but then these kind of very clean typefaces and the hand. It's so cool. Everything just comes together so well, and then the hints of red just kind of make it pop all the more. For me, if I'm looking for something with some military provenance, one of these watches, there are obviously luxury watch options out there that are well over $5K. What you're getting here is just so much more, and frankly, I think it has a more unique style than what a lot of those other watches do. Looking now at the straps, 20 millimeter lugs on this model, which is nice to see. One of the other Hanharts that I reviewed had 21, so 20 is just easier to deal with if you want to switch out. It's a beautiful strap that it comes with. So frankly, you're not even going to want to switch it for a while. It's a rivet strap. You have the steel rivet, goes all the way through with the same cap on the other side. It's nicely brushed. It is a heavy calf leather. I imagine it's doubled over, but it has a really nice supple feel, but it's nice and strong too. You have, this nice kind of mark that goes down the sides. I really like it when they do that. It's a little impression in the leather, and then heavy stitching. It's just very attractive, very well made, straight sides, all painted. The Hanhart buckle is actually worth looking at too. It's a unique buckle design. It is very, it's fully machined. It is brushed. It isn't just a piece of folded steel or whatever. It's a rugged piece of metal. And actually the tang as well is a milled tang. It's not just folded steel. So it's a very solid buckle, which is great. These are, buckles are so often overlooked by even, the greatest brands. So seeing a good buckle is always a sign that the brand really cares about every little detail. To wrap up, the Hanhart Pioneer Mark I Monopusher chronograph is just a truly excellent watch and a unique watch and a great value. It's not inexpensive at $2,160. Certainly is something you're going to want to be sure you want. It's not money just to throw away, but what you're getting here is just a lot of bang for your buck. It's got military provenance, history, a gorgeous design, incredible execution, and more importantly, at the price really is this, very modified automatic chronograph. Automatic chronographs, even at $2,000 for a brand new watch, let alone one made in Germany, are rarely $2,000. So to get a Monopusher is really just exceptional. It's really a unique value, and one that I personally think is very worth, kind of investing in. When I see watches, I often, I really like them, but I don't often feel like these are ones I have to get. This one, unfortunately for my wallet, the Pioneer Mark I is a watch that I've kind of smitten with, and I think, is something I will personally want to add to my collection in the next few years. It's so stylish, it's so much fun to wear, and it's fun to play with the chronograph because it has a great mechanism to it. So yeah, please read the full review at Worn&Wound. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Thank you.